Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'm back at it with yet another video, and today we're going to be taking a previewed look at the next lunation, the first of what will be 2 new moons in Virgo. If you guys like my content, you want to see more of it, make sure you click the subscription button below. Click that bell button so you're alerted as to when I have new videos on the channel. And don't forget to give me a thumbs up and like this video, consider sharing, and leave me a comment and let me know where this new moon energy is taking place in your horoscope. Excited to be back, talk to you guys about this. Obviously, there's a lot to unpack. And if you guys are starting to notice kind of like the rumbles that are going on astrologically, it's because we are actually getting ready to come into what will be fall's 2025 eclipse season. So this new moon will be taking place on August 23rd, 2025. For some of you guys in other time zones, it can actually be very late at night on the 22nd. But we're going to see a new moon that's going to be taking place at 0 degrees of Virgo. So obviously, this is an interesting degree as it represents the very first degree of this particular sign, which means not only is it a new moon, which is great for new intentions, but this is a fresh start that's really packed with earthly kind of practical energy. And it's perfect for setting intentions around organization or health or anything involving self-improvement. Now, if you're feeling a call to kind of tidy up your life, this lunar event is a really great time to do it. It's giving you the cosmic kind of green light. So if you guys stick around, I'm going to talk to you guys about this new moon. We're going to break it down and talk about some ritual recommendations as well as some of the aspects and obviously personalized tips and predictions for this new moon for the 12 rising signs. So essentially a new moon, we have it every month. This is a time where the sun and the moon align in the same zodiac sign. So this is really going to be making the moon invisible from Earth. So what it means is that this is kind of like the darkest phase of the lunar cycle. And astrologically, this is a time where monthly we see new beginnings. It's also about planting seeds for the future, manifesting intentions that will grow over the next 6 months until the next corresponding full moon, which will be in Virgo next year. Now, I want to remind you guys that whenever we have lunations now in Virgo or in Pisces, it's going to be incredibly important because it is tied to the nodes. So technically, this is too far away for this to be a solar eclipse in Virgo because obviously we're looking at an 18-degree difference. But next month, you guys are going to get that 29-degree Virgo solar eclipse, which is basically a new moon on steroids. So when we think about, this Virgo energy and like the new moon, essentially new moons are very powerful, very potent because they're almost like portals for renewal. So as if dealing with nodal transits or solar or lunar eclipses weren't enough, this is really kind of aiding to some of that energy. And it's all about introspection and setting powerful intentions. So I want you guys to think of this new moon in Virgo almost like a blank canvas. And this is where you can really, figure out and formulate and dream and kind of create what you want. This energy obviously is dark, so it's also turned inward. It's very inward focused because we're focusing on growth over the immediate next 2 to 4 weeks and then eventually 6 months time when this becomes a full moon. So it does encourage reflection and releasing old and aligning with a newer version, a healthier, better organized version of ourselves. So rituals that are going to be taking place around the time of this new moon may amplify your manifestations and really drawing on the moon's kind of feminine receptive energy to kind of co-create with the universe is definitely recommended. Now, Virgo obviously is the 6th sign of the zodiac. It is mutable earth, and this is a sign that represents practicality. Virgo is all about analysis. It's about service. It's about health, obviously meticulous kind of attention to detail. And as a mutable earth sign ruled by Mercury, there's also a huge emphasis on communication. Now, we know that Mercury has recently been retrograde. By the time we get to the end of August, we're actually coming out of Mercury's shadow, which is really helpful right at the tail end of that, post-shadow where it's been going retrograde in Leo, which has definitely been very bold and dynamic, really rethinking matters of the heart and how we express ourselves and really focus on joy. Now, Virgo is also a sign that is really associated with efficiency. So I think of like systems, anything revolving around organization, health, the service industry, anything connecting to our coworkers, our jobs, job numbers, organization, helping others. Virgo really is like the editor-in-chief for all of the other 11 zodiac signs. So, when we think of this particular sign, I always think of the bit of wheat that Virgo has because it embodies purity. It also embodies harvest and fertility and the wisdom of the earth. So it's definitely associated with healing, wellness, and anything in regards to grounded productivity. But it can also lean into, with the South Node being there, perfectionism, being overly critical, if this energy is unchecked. So the sign's really kind of teaching us to embrace imperfections with the South Node being there while striving for improvement. I'm a little curious about the 0 degrees because obviously in recent years, we've seen some things where something has come in at 0 degrees and something has come in at 29 degrees. And that's like a double dose of Virgo energy over like the next couple of months. And if you guys follow degree theory, astrology, if you follow that particular system, each particular degree is going to have an association with a different sign. So 0 degrees is always representing fresh starts. So something that is like the purest form of this particular energy. So in a literal sense, this could mean that we're starting fresh with routines, maybe with wellness habits. We have new service-oriented goals. Maybe we're starting new jobs. Maybe we are focusing on, cutting or getting rid of bad habits. And whether that means you're decluttering your space or revamping your diet or committing to a new work project, this is a particularly potent new moon for kind of having a blank slate. Now, 0 degrees factored into also having a new moon, I feel really amplifies the kind of freshness, the new opportunities that come with a new moon. And it's pure Virgo essence. So it's going to be about really focusing on new steps forward when it comes to our practical life, really urging us to maybe, build systems that support long-term success or better health habits or productivity. Now, if you have any particular planets around, I would say 0 to about 3 degrees Virgo, so that could be sun, moon, or rising. Maybe you have an angle there, maybe you have another planet there. This is going to be really significant for you as the new moon will be conjunct that particular planet in your birth chart, as well as anybody who has anything at 28 to 29 degrees of the fixed signs. So Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, if you have anything in the last 2 degrees of that sign, technically, this is also going to be kind of squaring this because this is at 0 degrees. So there'll be a number of people who are going to be feeling this the most. And, I feel like particularly for the Virgo placements, obviously this is going to be really lighting your guys' chart up very personally. And it's really going to be speaking to the major personal growth that you're kind of going through. And you'll feel a strong pull towards new beginnings in health, work, or daily rituals. So watch for that. Now, for the fixed signs who are 28, 29 degrees, this ties to the up-and-coming solar eclipse that we're going to be having in September. That'll be around 29 degrees of Virgo next month. In a way, this is kind of creating a bridge that is of tension and release because the fixed signs at late degrees are going to be feeling the pressure of that particular solar eclipse to let go of stubborn patterns, especially in areas of stability, creativity, transformation, and innovation. So the new moon energy now at 0 degrees is really foreshadowing some major culminations that's going to be taking place for the fixed signs. Now, the Sabian symbol that we're going to be looking at will actually be 1 degrees of Virgo because we're going to be rounding up. It's at 0 degrees and 23 minutes. And the Sabian symbol for that is a man's head, or more fully in a portrait, right? The significant features of a man's head here is artistically emphasized. So this really symbolizes maturity, individuality, and the essence of character, highlighting how we present our true self to the world. And it really means that this is a new moon where we're going to be really focusing on personal integrity, self-expression, and the power of kind of refining our identity. So under this new moon, it's a call to really emphasize your unique traits, your unique strengths, and really harvesting your inner wisdom and stepping into a bolder, more authentic version of yourself. So it's kind of like an artist that's kind of sculpting, your life's portrait in a way. Now that 0 degrees, I think, is probably the most interesting thing, not only because it does really emphasize the fresh start, but some of the aspects that we're seeing it make to both Pluto as well as Saturn and Neptune in Aries. This is a in conjunct or a quincunx that it is making to the Aries and Aquarius placements. But when it's in this configuration, it's actually forming a yod. So we also think of this as like a finger of fate. So it's really a significant kind of like turning point in regards to new systems, new commitments when it comes to our health and habits, maybe something about changes with our job, changes also with like healthcare systems, And obviously the in conjunct of the quincunx to Saturn and Neptune is the impact it's going to have on individuals. And also the in conjunct it's going to have on Pluto does talk a lot about, information, data, analysis, kind of making major, I think, headlines revolving around how this is changing and transforming things for the collective. But 0 degrees is that pure point. So it's a starting point. It is obviously raw. It's also unadulterated. And the energy of it in the sign kind of works like a 0-point potential. So it does symbolize new beginnings and innovations, but also karmic fresh starts, often indicating that there are some really big turn of events that are going to be happening that are going to involve recognition or destined new direction when it comes to that planet's themes. So having the new moon being there is really kind of saying it's urging us to embody this energy without any baggage from the previous degrees. Obviously Leo, where we've been having kind of retrogrades recently. So we get a reset full of untapped potential and thrill of the unknown. Now, a new moon in Virgo, I think the magic of this particular lunation every year really lies in the healing and kind of grounding powers of this sign. Virgo new moons are kind of like a cosmic detox in a way, and it really helps us manifest practical, healths and practical miracles when it comes to our health, our productivity, and service. And this one's magic really amplifies purification, organization, self-care rituals, and turning everyday habits into sacred acts. So I expect there could be some synchronicities around wellness goals, definitely helpful connections and sudden insights into improving our routines. And spiritually, it's an ideal time for kind of earth-based magic. So this could be grounding meditations, it could be herbal spells, and kind of aligning your body, mind, and spirit to a more abundant harvest and what you're hoping to kind of bring in 6 months from now. Now, it's significant that this is the first of 2 new moons in Virgo. So like I said, this is the first one at 0 degrees. The next one is going to be the solar eclipse at 29 degrees of Virgo. And it's very potent because it's a double dose of Virgo energy that's kind of bookending the sign from 0 to 29 degrees. So the first one kicks off a cycle of fresh starts and organization and health, far enough away from the south node so things can really stick, close enough to a square to Uranus, which means we kind of have to get outside of our usual frame of mind, and forming that yod to, obviously Saturn, Neptune, and Pluto. So it says that this is going to be some really big changes in regards to jobs, routines, habits, and health that's going to have long-standing effects on the collective. I feel like, the second one that's kind of coming up on the 21st, because it's going to be a solar eclipse, because it's going to be a new moon, because it's tied to the south node, it's going to be really amplifying closures and major revelations and fated shifts. Obviously, we're starting to feel the effects of, eclipse season pretty much from this lunation on at the end of August. But together, this really means that there is a profound Virgo-themed journey that's going to be taking place. And it's indicating that the habits that are formed now, the intentions, the organization, the productivity, is going to be very beneficial. And likely it's going to be kind of like, in a way, eclipsing outmoded or outdated ones next month that have needed some kind of refinement. So traditionally, this is called a black moon in some traditions, if it's like the second new moon in a solar month. So we're going to have, obviously one in August, one in September, but they're both happening on the bookends of Virgo season. But specifically, this is, I think, considered the corn moon, if I remember correctly. And this is, a time that's all about the harvest, what we're bringing in after kind of tending to our crops and working through everything that we've been kind of growing. And it symbolizes that we have some kind of personal growth and obviously karmic evolution. Now, the ways that you're going to want to ritualize this new moon to really harness the energy of Virgo, I think, is just really aligning with like the practical kind of grounded nature of the sign. So there is something very sacred when it comes to cleansing or, organizing or decluttering your space, right? Like cleaning up and tidying can be very spiritual in itself. But it can also be wonderful to be working with like purifying kind of like rituals. So detoxes, cleanses, anything revolving around, cleansing or protecting your home, maybe working with burning some incense or some sage or using some crystals. And obviously meditate on your intentions revolving around health and organization. And then I would journal them down and create maybe like a crystal grid for abundance. You're using Virgo stones. You can also ground yourself by walking barefoot or organizing a drawer. That can be a symbolic act. Maybe set a 6-week success intention. And like a new routine, we want to visualize it kind of manifesting. And working with herbs and like trinkets and charms can also be really great. So I'll give you guys some recommendations for that. Now, if you're into working with herbs, because Virgo is an earth sign, working with crystals and herbs can be really beneficial. In particular, I like fennel for Virgo because it does aid digestion. Also, dill can be really great because it's connected to Mercury, so it's for protection and also mental focus. And you can also use peppermint, which is great for kind of like healing, or lavender, which is really great for calming energies, especially because this one can feel like some of the change that's kind of coming is very abrupt. And also skullcap is really good for nervous system support. Now, if you want to work with like incense or oils, I would use lavender oil, I would use peppermint oil, I would use frankincense oil, or you can also use bergamot. So those are the ones that I would use for this particular new moon. And in particular, crystals that I think that can be helpful with this lunation would be peridot, because that is connected to Virgo and Mercury. That's good for spiritual growth and positivity. Moss agate is really great also, especially if you want grounding energies in abundance, or you're starting like a meditation or a breathwork exercise regularly. I love moss agate for that. And I would also focus on maybe using clear quartz for clarity, fluorite for focus, and you can also use sodalite for logic, communication, and truth. So those are the stones that I would recommend working with. Now, the aspects are really going to tell me a lot about this particular new moon and what's going to be kind of vibing for the next 2 to 4 weeks, and then ultimately turning into a full moon 6 months down the road. So the first thing that I always look at before I even get into the new moon is I look at the ruler. Okay, so Mercury is the ruler of Virgo, and Mercury actually started its retrograde, I believe it was the end of July, or kind of like the third week of July, and it started right around 15 degrees of Leo. So something to think about is that while Mercury is the ruler, not only is it still in shadow, bringing up some of the stuff that's been kind of getting worked out literally for the last 2 months, but it's also behind this particular new moon. So in itself, at a 12, there is like a very visualizing, praying, spiritually kind of like practicing. It could be about art being something that is sacred. Obviously, Leo, tapping into our intuition, maybe the little dramas and things that are kind of going on in our life with, creative projects, hobbies, kids, romantic partners, that, has been making it a little bit difficult to stay on track or to focus on a regular routine or to, get work done. Also, if you're a creative and if you've been trying to kind of, be better about meeting your deadlines or launching projects or working on things that you're kind of creating or designing, this can mean with this new moon that it's actually giving you the opportunity to now get serious about maintaining a schedule where you can be creating and focusing on your bliss and your joy more regularly. So with Mercury being in that particular position of the shadow, and also Mercury really isn't making that many aspects in the sky. The only thing that it's got is a sextile to Mars in Libra, which we'll talk about in a second, which is friendly. We've kind of seen the Mars Mercury sextile pretty much happen, throughout kind of mid-August into the new moon in Virgo. And a sextile is a really supportive energy, so they can be fueling each other. So like where we're taking action in relationships, it can actually be supporting our, self-expression, our happiness, our joy, our romantic lives, creativity, fun, fulfillment. But it's still a sextile, so it's not a major aspect, but there's a lot of other things that are going on when you kind of look beneath the surface of this particular new moon. Probably the biggest thing is that the sun and the moon make an inconjunct or a quincunx to Saturn and Neptune in Aries, and they make an inconjunct and a quincunx to Pluto in Aquarius. So this is that yod, or the finger of fate, that I was talking about, right? And this is basically saying it's pointing to what new things you're starting during this particular new moon cycle and how it's going to have pretty far overreaching impacts on the Aquarius and Aries area of your chart. In a nutshell, Aries is going to represent our goals, our personal direction, our identity, individuals, also anything revolving around confidence or lack thereof with Saturn there, and clarity. And Aquarius is going to represent more what's kind of going on collectively, and, the shocks and surprises with Pluto and Aquarius of, what's changing in regards to, news or information, or how the impact new intentions that are being set, or the new systems that are being set that are going to be impacting the collective energies, Pluto and Aquarius. So I think a lot of this, just literally, if we kind of zoom out, we don't think about it on like a personal level, it's going to be about some major changes that are about to happen. I think when it comes to the job market, I think when it comes to the industries that are all about service. So it can be hospitality, it can be food, it can be bars, it can be things connecting to also those who are in uniform, those who help. So I think of like doctors, nurses, first responders, all of that stuff. That's going to be a huge kind of turning point over the next 6 months as well. So this yod that the moon makes the focal point of basically is considered that finger of God aspect. And that's because we have two quincunxes from, those planets in Aries and Aquarius to the new moon. And it's kind of like sandpaper. It's uncomfortable. Like an inconjunct means that there's something rubbing you the wrong way. And we will see throughout, Virgo season that as planets are going through Virgo, they're going to come into inconjunct or quincunx with Saturn, Neptune, and Chiron. So it's going to kind of show a lot of us where, we are now becoming more aware of, why we feel the way that we do emotionally. Saturn, Neptune in Aries, obviously, it could be lack of personal fulfillment, lack of joy. It could be lack of direction. And also, we're going to be learning a lot more about our health. And this could be about health systems, changes that are happening within like the food industry, that's happening also with like packaging or, food service, and also finding out a lot more about like what is not healthy for us, especially when it comes to Saturn and Neptune, pharmaceuticals, alcohol, drugs, things like that. And then the inconjunct of the quincunx to Pluto is going to be, I think, kind of like the jaw-dropping shock and surprise that people are going to have just about how quickly we're going to see some changes in these particular industries over the better part of the next 6 months. Now, really what this means is that there is need for fated adjustment, and that, there's tension around transforming routines when it comes to the inconjunct Pluto and Aquarius, which needs or requires us to have innovative change, while also building boundaries in dreams and action as the new moon in conjunct Saturn and Neptune in Aries. So I'm expecting some pretty significant like karmic pivots towards practical spirituality, releasing control in order to have better breakthroughs, realizing that there are some things that we just cannot control, that we just have to let them do what they want to do. And maybe we're navigating some of these changes in a much more kind of inspired, intuitive, creative level with Mercury being at 12 in Leo. Now, it's leaving shadow pretty soon. This is also interesting because with the post shadow, it means that there can be some communication that's kind of clearing up. Maybe there's a little bit of like the lingering retrograde lessons, especially when it comes to, creative expression. And it's time really to confidently voice our ideas, but we're trying to do this without the drama. And I think that has been a lot of like the lesson of the Mercury retrograde, to be honest with you guys. Now, Mercury is sextiling Mars, which is a harmonious aspect. This will kind of like boost relationships. It can also bring forward this more kind of like witty diplomatic action with others. So it's great for negotiations, social interactions, asserting, creativity, and energy flows for more better balanced decisions. So I think that can be positive as well. And just my interpretation of like Mercury retrograde in Leo, because Mercury is directly now tied to all these planets in Virgo, has very much been about, are we creating time for the things that we love, the things that we enjoy? And like, how are we focusing on, being able to grow or create or feel inspired? So now maybe we have a better idea and we're kind of getting the show on the road and like making time for some of these things. So whether it's hanging with your kids, getting back into dating, having a hobby you participate in, now is obviously the time. And the new moon will also be coming into a square with Uranus, which honestly is a little... It's a little electrifying. It can mean that there is going to be some curveballs that are going to be impacting or affecting, obviously, the new moon intentions or the area of Virgo in your chart. And literally, Mercury rules or is the dispositor of Uranus and Gemini because it's tied to Gemini and Virgo. So a lot of like the most recent Mercury retrograde that's been kind of going on is directly connected also to Uranus in Gemini. So there's been new updates and ways of connecting, communicating. There's new softwares. There's, new opportunities to also educate or learn. And this is obviously impacting how people look at their creative kind of hobbies and habits, or Leo could also be how that's been impacting the stock market, how it's been impacting entertainment. And this is squaring Uranus. So, in a nutshell, this new moon has that tense aspect, and it brings surprises or disruptions in routines. So think like tech glitches and sudden insights can kind of happen here. And really what it's doing is it's urging us to innovate, problem solving, but warns against acting impulsively. And, we want to channel this kind of Uranus energy for revolutionary health updates. This can mean that in many ways, some of these sudden changes and kind of like new improvements or new apps or softwares or even things involving AI are hitting the market. It's disrupting and impacting jobs, right? Particularly with Mercury being the ruler at a 12, how it's changing the, kind of like film industry, how it's impacting creators, animators, actors and actresses, people who are on screen, and anything also revolving around new like forms of media, and how there's new forms of media that's going to be coming out, and it's going to be releasing information that's going to give people lots of information revolving around health and wellness. In particular, I think it's going to be podcasters. It's going to be also, bloggers, people who are going to be writing books, and giving a lot of insight into, what they have learned about their health or fitness or wellness journey. In particular, we may hear a lot more about lung health with Uranus and Gemini. We might also be hearing a lot more about language and communications and things involving the nervous system and the impact that certain foods or certain health practices or certain treatments actually have on that. And so new kind of jarring information and news breaks, I think, is going to be coming out over the next I would say 6 to 12 months, because this is really tied into like the eclipse cycles. Now, Venus is going to be making some aspects. Jupiter's going to be making some aspects. And a lot of the aspects are actually quite lovely outside of the Sun square Uranus, where anything goes. Probably one of them is that Jupiter in Cancer will be trining the North Node, which means it'll also be sextiling the South Node. And what this means is that, expansive Jupiter in Cancer is really harmonizing with the nodes of fate. So as it trines the North Node in Pisces, it's really amplifying soul growth, intuition, emotions. And it's trine to the North Node in Pisces encourages us to kind of take action more intuitively and to be compassionate and kind of be expanding at home, while the sextile to the South Node in Virgo is releasing anything revolving around, baggage or old perfectionist tendencies or disorganization or blockages when it comes to health and wellness. So the theme here is really, I think, about emotional abundance and karmic healing. Wonderful energy for those of you guys that are like, I want to clean my house. I want to organize my space. I want to, get ready to bring people in to, fix tile or, work on carpet or add additions, or I want to hire a real estate agent to sell my house, because you're going to have people who are going to be willing to kind of help you with that process, and you'll be able to get a lot more done. Virgo is about the help. We also see Venus in Cancer, not really making any exact aspects, but it is beginning to come into an opposition with Pluto in Aquarius. That opposition was triggered through a recent Mars, retrograde, through a recent Mercury retrograde. And as Venus is approaching and getting ready to come into Leo, that opposition of Pluto is a little sticky. So my thought here is that we can look at it one of two ways. We can either say, well, Venus is in opposition to Pluto, things are going to get kind of hectic when it comes to relationships. Or we look at the Venus coming into a trine with Saturn and Neptune in Aries, as well as sextiling Uranus. So I would rather make lemonade and work with the sextile and the trine than look at the opposition personally. And I feel like this is really about Venus trining Saturn and Neptune, which is fostering stable, dreamy relationships, creativity, better self-expression. The sextile to Uranus and Gemini adds much more of an exciting flair, and maybe it's about doing something that's unconventional, particularly at home or family, because it's in Cancer. And this is where, love and values get nurturing, and also boundary setting boost with some innovative twists. Now, Venus is starting to oppose Pluto. You'll see that actually a couple of days after this particular new moon. And this opposition has really stirred up a lot of power dynamics in relationships, issues revolving around jealousy, but also transformation and emotional security versus group ideals. And this is about really healing through vulnerability. But still, Mars and Pluto in opposition, there is some intensity, there is some power struggles, there is going to be shining a light on the darker side of love and money. And in particular, because Venus is going to be strongly tied with the moon, as will Jupiter, a lot of this is about like how we are becoming aware of our family patterning, emotional tendencies and habits that we have been kind of experiencing since we were children, where we were raised, the homes we were raised in, the type of home and family dynamic, and how we can kind of look at that and go, okay, well, we can, reflect on the past, but we can also do something better. So instead of looking at things going like, well, I've always lived this way, or this is how my parents were, or I've always eaten this way, or this is what my family has always done, it's giving us an opportunity to kind of tap into it and go like, okay, well, we can address the emotions there, but actually it would be really smart and kind of like healthier and more helpful to focus on new systems rather than getting stuck in the past, because it can be very emotionally kind of overwhelming, I think, with Jupiter and Venus being in that sign. Now, I think that Mars in Libra is starting to come into a square with Jupiter. So a lot of these things are not exact. I work with like a 2 or 3 degree orb. So if it's any more than that, like this is a 10 and this is a 16, so it's a 6 degree applying square. It basically means that you're still feeling the effects of it, but you won't see it come for another couple of days until after this lunation. The Mars-Jupiter square is a video I'm going to be doing in the future, but essentially Mars is much more action-oriented, and it's in the sign of Libra where it's a bit debilitated. So it's wanting to take action and wanting to see things kind of heat up in relationships. And as it's coming into a square with Jupiter in Cancer, it's an opening square. So it means Jupiter in Cancer is getting checked by some of the actions, the dynamic stuff, the conflicts, sometimes the issues with diplomacy and relationships. And it means that Jupiter can get a little overzealous when it comes to pursuits in relationship or home life, and that there can be conflicts between diplomacy and emotional excess. And we want to channel this into something that's kind of positive. So likely, the new moon is basically saying, there's this new thing I have to do. I have never done it before. I don't know even how to begin, but I know I have to. It's scary in conjunct to Saturn, Neptune, and Aries, because I have to focus on my health, or I have to start working out, or I have to get a new job, or I have to make this kind of change. But change can be good. And I think the in conjunct and the quincunx to Pluto is enough people kind of get in the frame of mind that's like, no, we need to find a new way. We need to build a new system moving forward. Things can be quite positive, but yes, this means that with setting these intentions, it is going to shake up the way that we think, the way we communicate, and also it's going to be making some big changes, I think, to when it comes to our overall health and productivity. I think there's going to be a lot of changes in our schedule that's going to be kind of going on. Now, 6 months from now, this will become eventually a full moon. Okay, so let me show you the next eclipse here. So in 2 weeks' time after this, then we will have the full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces. So this is the last lunation before we get into kind of eclipse season. So this is where this is taking place. And then you're going to see the second new moon in Virgo, which will be around September 21st, 2025 at 29 degrees. I'm going to be doing videos on that pretty soon for you guys. But in my opinion, next month is quite crazy. I think the Pisces eclipse next month is beautiful, especially with trines to Jupiter. You really can't go wrong. And then you've got the September 21st solar eclipse, which that opposition to Saturn is going to bring a lot of challenges and upheaval. In particular, when it comes to obviously Virgo things, health and anything revolving around services. But now it's going to be more kind of legal because Mercury is going to be in Libra, and whether or not we can have diplomacy with authority figures, the opposition to Saturn. And then this most recent 0 degrees new moon in Virgo will turn into and become a full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo on March 3rd, 2026. Okay, so whatever intentions you're setting now, it looks like it's going to be kind of off the wall, unusual, different, having to get outside of your comfort zone, and then it will manifest as a full moon around the beginning of March of 2026, and it's a south node eclipse, so it's closer to the south node than it is now. It's definitely going to be emotionally clearing. Notice that it's at a 12, so it's definitely dealing with those themes revolving around mental health, addiction, anything connecting to film. Also, I think a lot of it's immigration related, to be honest with you, because, Saturn is heading back into Pisces. So we're going to see this kind of finale revolving around borders and immigration. And then March of next year, when we have this full moon at 12, the ruler Mercury is retrograde and it's in Pisces. It's very similar in a way to the eclipse that we just had this recent March, when we had an eclipse in Virgo, and then Mercury was going, getting ready to go retrograde, in Aries. So back into Pisces. And we may see some similar themes, especially with this pileup of planets in the North Node in Pisces, where it's like this grand conclusion or completion. Mars, North Node, Sun, Mercury, Venus, and all these planets are going to be then heading into Aries, where we're going to start to see the true effects of the Saturn-Neptune conjunction that will be coming next February. So, there's a lot of stuff that's getting kind of kicked up between now and the beginning of the year next year. So just something to kind of think about. This is not an eclipse. It may feel like that because of, it being in the same sign, obviously, as the South Node. But I'm approaching this new moon and the other solar eclipse that's going to be happening next month in Virgo as like, okay, this is an all hands on deck moment. Like, this is the area of the chart that actually really needs the most work. I think the recent Mercury retrograde has been telling that. And I also feel like just the sheer significance of this being a yod is saying that we really have to work on some of these new health habits, systems focus. We have to focus on purity. We have to be of service. We have to be working through things and making things better, and also kind of gutting out certain systems and ways of doing things that aren't working, because it's going to be necessary in order for us to kind of grow and evolve in the future. So with that being said, I would like to show you guys where this new moon is going to be taking place in Virgo. So this will be the very first one. And this is going to be the predictions that I have for the 12 rising signs. So to make the most of my predictions, you guys are going to want to listen to your rising sign first. That's going to tell you where in your chart, which house you're experiencing this new moon. Obviously, it's going to be very early in the morning on August 23rd, so you can do something either in the evening of the 22nd, or you can do something at any point on the 23rd, and it will be at 0 degrees. So this is for Western astrology predictions. Obviously, I'm going to show you guys which house the new moon is going to be taking place in. I want you to take into consideration the themes of that house and like the fact that we're doing double duty this next month in this area. And also that Mercury is the ruler and it's been retrograde in Leo. So what you've been kind of learning over the last month or two with this retrograde, and the square to Uranus and Gemini, which means there can be something that's going to kind of come out of the blue that's going to kind of send this, directional change in a new direction. And it's going to be kind of a little bit of like an unexpected kind of event that you'll see play out over the next 2 to 4 weeks between now and the next eclipse. All right, so let's go ahead and start first with my Aries and my Aries risings. You guys are going to be experiencing the first of what will be 2 new moons in the sign of Virgo. So this is the first one. It will be happening on August 23rd. It's going to happen at 0 degrees. So for you, Aries, obviously the 6th house is dealing with a focus on, health. This is also on your work, your routines. This could be your office space. This could be the people you work with. You're either looking for a new job, you're starting a new health or fitness routine, maybe you're getting back in to see your doctor. Maybe it means that you're just really focusing on productivity and or pets. Pets can be another theme with the 6th house. And it's really highlighting the unique areas of your chart that's kind of connecting to shifts that lead to, better wellness. So focus on your health, work, and your routines. Watch for sudden job shifts that lead to the ability to kind of be better organized or healthier or have better habits. I would say as a tip, this would be a wonderful time to start a fitness ritual or to be journaling your daily habits. And this is going to be creating a square to Uranus in your 3rd house. So I would love to see some of you guys using apps or like Apple Watches or other things to track your steps or to track what you're eating or to track your productivity. So there could be apps and other things you could be using. This could also mean that there's some unexpected communication back and forth with people at work, especially with changes in office spaces or schedules. And it can provide a little bit of like some stressful communication. But this is really showing me with Mercury sextile Mars in Libra that you can work with other people. You can kind of foster better working relationships and partnerships. You can find creative solutions. And I think that this is very significant, particularly if you're like 0 to 3 degrees Aries, sun, moon, or rising, that this new moon in conjunct Saturn and Neptune on your ascendant and also Pluto talks about like very powerful groups and friends and like networks that you can be joining that can be giving you more insight when it comes to your health habits. And I think how to really bring in better health support or better work support. That could be something else that you could see happening as well. All right, so let's see what card you guys get. And that is the 10 of Wands, which is like, I'm tired. I'm tired, Grandpa. And this says this is all about feeling like there's a lot of responsibility, burdens, duties, areas, obligations, burnout, and struggles are possible. But I think in a career sense, this talks about releasing something, completing something, and feeling like something is finished. So you could be completing a job, you could be completing a project, you could be completing, something revolving around, a new goal that you have kind of set. And now you're like, okay, now to the next goal. So you have to think about what it is that you're really focusing on getting organized or kind of like restructuring. And I think a lot of it's just going to be how you kind of think or perceive that this change can kind of come about. Don't beat yourself up too much. Remember, this is a South Node lunation, so things aren't going to be super smooth or super perfect. But if you're finding new ways to be able to connect and kind of communicate with support systems, I think that you can actually see the change that you're really hoping to kind of bring forth with this new moon. Good luck. All right, we got Taurus and Taurus rising. What's up, Taurus? You're going to experience a new moon in Virgo at 0 degrees, the first of 2, and it's in a fellow sister Earth sign. So if you happen to have any planetary placements at 0 degrees to about 3 degrees of Taurus, sun, moon, or rising, this is very friendly for you. I think you're actually going to like this. It will be trining your placements. And Earth trines are always about feeling solid and a little bit more abundant and a little bit more grounded. But if you have anything at 28 or 29 degrees of Taurus, you are going to be feeling the effects of the square. And you're going to be kind of feeling like you're in a season of change, or that you're realizing that there is a series of things that are coming that's going to promote some change here. Positive is that the 5th house is a house that deals with creativity. This is about romance, having fun, creating. It's also about hobbies. And obviously it's Virgo, so it's like, perfecting the way that you create, being very particular and scheduled when it comes to your kids or when it comes to dating. And obviously I predict for you guys that there could be some major innovative sparks in love or hobbies that bring you some joy. As a tip, I would set intentions for playful self-expression and maybe use carnelian for feeling like a little bit more motivated. In particular, this is a house that not only trines you, but it is going to be making some aspects to other things in the sky. So some sextiles to your 3rd house can be about creative writing. It could be about short distance traveling. It can also be about websites and anything regarding education. There will be a square to Uranus in your 2nd house, which means through sudden changes, innovations, or disruptions in your finances or your resources, it can bring about a way of you having to look at something in a new perspective. So learning to, have fun and be creative, maybe take risks, but not spend too much. Looking for ways to be able to kind of, bring in new creative projects or hobbies that could actually incentivize you to want to make more. Venus isn't technically in any real harsh aspects. She is starting to oppose Pluto, so it's giving you the same storyline. That's a lot of the changes going on at home versus the changes in your work life or in your professional life. But she is also starting to trine Saturn and Neptune. So I think that there is like a sense of, with Taurus and Taurus risings, that they know that change is on the horizon, especially when it comes to maybe your home or your family life. And that you maybe feel like you have to take a little bit of a back seat right now to work on some things, which is totally fine. But in order to really, I think, make some of the innovative changes at work, you're having to tap into your intuition and really focus on new ways of being able to create. And I think a lot of you guys are going to have a creative breakthrough. All right, so the card that I got for you is the Wheel of Fortune, which is a positive upward swing. That's how I see it. This is kind of a card that's associated with Jupiter, where Venus has been kind of dancing with Jupiter in recent weeks. And this is about change cycles. This is also about fate and decisions. moments that deal with luck, fortune, and unexpected events. Okay, so for Taurus and Taurus risings, unexpected romantic opportunities, unexpectedly falling in love with a new hobby, unexpected things revolving around children or pregnancy. This can also be another theme that's coming up in your 5th house. Hopefully you guys enjoy and you're getting creative with some of those changes that you've been making on the home front to make more time, I think, for fun. All right, we got Gemini and Gemini rising. What's up, Gemini? You're going to be experiencing a new moon in Virgo in your natal 4th house, the first of what will be 2. So pay attention, because this is definitely going to be rocking the mutable signs as well as we're coming into eclipse season. Maybe it's a little bit more potent for you if you're like 0 to 3 degrees of Gemini, sun, moon, or rising, because it's going to be squaring your placements and also Uranus. But the new moon is kind of like a reset button that's happening in your area that deals with home and family. Property, roots, things revolving around, your private home space, the people you live with, and those who are closest to you. So a new moon here really, I think, is going to be about, okay, what's going on the home front? Over the next 2 months, you're going to see a lot of change in this department. So whether this means you're spending a lot more time with family or at home, or there is some big move on the horizon, maybe you are looking for your forever home. Maybe you're trying to make a lot of home renovations kind of happen over the next 2 months. I would just say what's interesting to me is Mercury is the ruler of this. It's also your chart ruler, and it's been retrograde in the area that deals with looking at new neighborhoods, communicating with siblings or neighbors, communicating and talking about how home is going to be changed because of, something involving communication and family. And certainly with the South Node being there could be a lot of I'm kind of over living in this place. I want to move somewhere else, or I really want to redecorate or redesign something, or, I've had too much togetherness with one of my siblings. Any of these things could have happened. But this new moon is also going to be squaring Uranus in your sign. So I foresee this as family surprises that are prompting emotional reorganization. I would really advise you guys to declutter your space and meditate on security when it comes to your intentions. I also would say you're going to be feeling a little restless, and that there is a sense of you maybe not wanting to feel like you have to just stay home and be there all the time. Or maybe you're feeling you're feeling a little cagey or a little impatient when it comes to a home or family matter. And maybe you might be feeling like you're not seeing eye to eye with another person at home or how things are being run. And so the square to the sun could mean it could be a brother, it could be a male roommate, it could be a husband, it could be a father figure, but there could be a little bit of a power struggle, and you're reluctant to want to fall back into old home and family patterns. Positive, I would say, is that, this is the result of a quincunx to Saturn and Neptune as well as Pluto. So it's almost like there needs to be a pretty dramatic shift happening at home or with the family. And maybe that, shift is going to be about you traveling with the inconjunct Pluto in your 9th. Also, Saturn and Neptune is trying to get you to focus on forging new friendships, or really reevaluating some of the friendships that you currently have and whether or not they work for you. And I could also see this as, any reason at all to make changes and kind of get out of the house. So some of you guys might be feeling like it's just a matter of getting out of the house. Obviously, those of you guys who are looking to find a house, if you want to move, you want to, sign something in regards to a lease, or if you're wanting to kind of buy a home, traditionally a new moon in the 4th house can indicate that that's coming. Something that I would say, though, is that because you're going to have the next new moon, which will be a solar eclipse in opposition to Saturn and Neptune, which is coming back into your 10th house, does seem to kind of indicate that you're going to have to feel next month like you have to choose between your work and your home life. And there could be some stress and tension kind of doing both, or that there may be a sense of maybe changing where you're working and changing where you're living. So work and home are going to be impacting each other over the next month. I would really focus on right now what has to go and what you're willing to kind of release. The card that I got is the 5 of Swords, which does not surprise me with some of the squares to Uranus in your sign, because this really kind of talks about there being arguments or disputes. Maybe there's some aggressive energy with somebody in regards to the home or family. And this is also about kind of feeling like there's some intimidation or conflict, maybe some stress and some hostility. So looking at this new moon, I think a lot of that's the square to Uranus, where you're like, okay, I know I'm supposed to be kind of getting grounded and figuring out what's going on in the home zone, but I just feel like I can't make up my mind, and there could be some tension as a result of the square. Be mindful of how you're communicating with people. I feel like if it's for me, you're better off waiting until next month to see how the next new moon solar eclipse manifests, because you're going to have a better idea of what direction this is going to go in. Right now, just pay attention to the tension and where you're feeling like you need to break out of old home or family habits. Good luck. We've got Cancer and Cancer rising. You guys are going to be experiencing the new moon in Virgo taking place at 0 degrees in your third house. So the third house is obviously all about communication, short distance trips, learning, anything in regards to siblings and vehicles. You're ruled by the moon, so this lunation is significant, and it does sextile placements that you have in Cancer, especially if you have anything around 0 to 3 degrees of Cancer, or even if you have other aspects in Cancer, because Jupiter and Venus are moving through your sign, so it's pretty friendly with that. Anyway, new moons that you have in the third house are really great for kind of doing some, work revolving around information, around ideas, anything connecting to, hey, I want to launch a podcast, to I want to take a new course, to I want to buy a car, I want to plan a trip. It can be about transportation. It can be about learning. It can be about communication, particularly with, I would say, communication with people you work with, because it's in Virgo. It can also be about communication with siblings or with neighbors. And the new moon taking place here, for a lot of you guys, I feel like is going to really revolutionize the way that you think. So I would really recommend with this new moon, writing down your affirmations and being very clear about what they are, and finding ways to be able to kind of recite or vocalize that regularly over the next month can be really helpful. Now, this is obviously ruled by Mercury. Mercury is coming out of shadow in your second house. So there's been a lot of reassessing your finances and needing to do that, or feeling like there's been some changes with money coming in or with spending, which has likely impacted your third house. And it's been things like, well, no, I'm not buying a car, or I'm not changing up my gadgets yet, or I'm, deciding that I'm going to wait before I plan a trip, because the retrograde is kind of held off from making some of those bigger decisions with the South Node in your third. We also see that this new moon squares Uranus, which is in your 12th house. And that seems to symbolize that there's going to be some unexpected psychological, emotional, or spiritual insights. Maybe it's a dream, maybe it's a reading that is impacting and affecting the way that you're kind of thinking or proceeding forward during Virgo season when it comes to setting new intentions. So a little bit of mental stress, especially if there's any changes with like sleep or habits. I do feel like this being the focal point of a Saturn, Neptune in conjunction and a Pluto in conjunction, looks like there is some real serious conversations that maybe needs to be had, with work and employers, revolving around money owed, money due, what you are supposed to be bringing in. It could even be in conjunction or quincunx to Pluto, things kind of connected to unemployment, disability, anything revolving around also retirement for some people, and like having to speak out and communicate with certain people about what's making you anxious, and like feeling like you're getting clarity in regards to what steps to kind of take next. So if there's been some tension with the boss, or there's been issues maybe with like budgeting or like accounting, I could definitely see that coming up, or any insurance related issues as well. Now, 1 month from now, you'll have that next solar eclipse, and you'll get a video on that, but something that I would say is like that next solar eclipse that's coming in is going to be taking place at 29 degrees of Virgo, which is going to start squaring you on the ascendant. So this may indicate that you're going to get about a month down the road, and then you're like, I have to make a decision about moving. I have to make a decision about a vehicle. Now I have to sign a contract, or I have to sign a lease. So be mindful that this is really kind of prepping you and really amping you up when it comes to really focusing on having better communication with people before you get to that kind of turning point next month, right? All right, so let's see what card you get. Cancer, you have the 6 of Swords, which I do think you're going somewhere, or there may be a trip, or there might be a travel, or there can be like relocation happening. This is about like moving on, and this is also about like departure, accepting lessons, anything in regards to distance, and also, leaving something behind and something becoming more peaceful. So some of you guys, I do think, may be moving or seeing a change in your home or your family dynamic. And this can also mean that there is some changes in regards to like your financial stability. And so once you find out what's kind of stabilizing with like finances, the later part of August, it can help you kind of set forth some of these goals when it comes to your third house. Great, great, great time to be trying to think of creative ways to make money, especially if you want to do something online, as Mercury has been retrograde in your money house and it's tied to this new moon in the third. Hope that's helpful for you, Cancer. All right, we've got Leo and Leo rising. You guys are going to experience the first of what will be 2 new moons in the sign of Virgo taking place in your natal second house. So the universe is going to give you a double dose of really focusing on your finances, your values, anything when it comes to your self-worth. Obviously, you're ruled by the sun, so having a new moon does impact you in a very big way. And in many ways, this is kind of the preparation for next month's second new moon, which will be a solar eclipse in the sign of Virgo at 29 degrees. Definitely a time to kind of watch and pay attention. I do feel like for many of you who are late degrees I take that back. Yeah, late degrees, who are late degrees of the fixed signs. You're going to potentially be feeling this quite a bit over, like the next couple of weeks. I could see with the new moon being in the second house, really what this is focusing on is your finances, your spending habits, your self-worth, anything revolving around also like your security. And obviously the new moon here is a time where most people want to manifest more money and they're wanting to bring in more things, so they want to have more spending power. But keep in mind that this is a South Node eclipse. So this is going to be more about, okay, how can we set intentions to kind of bring in, something that's owed to me, or bring in something more easily, or bring in something that's not going to, require a lot of effort. Obviously, South Node in Virgo in the second house is like working hard for the money. But what you'll see with the next eclipse is that in September, it's going to oppose Saturn and Neptune in your 8th house, which is going to mean you're not really feeling like you have to be putting forth more effort. You're not focusing on spending a lot of money. You're being really kind of conservative with money that comes in, and also taking care of debt or dealing with some joint financial matters. But for right now, I would say this is a really good time maybe to set intentions revolving around self-esteem and security. There will be a square to Uranus, which makes me feel like there can be some unexpected income sources that can really boost your security, especially through networking or friends. And I would be really setting intentions revolving around budgeting. And moss agate can be really helpful for you guys, especially when it comes to abundance. You can also work with other abundance stones if you want. But I've always had this philosophy that when the South Node goes through the second house, it's almost like less is more. And you're learning to invest more, and you're learning to invest less, spend less. You're learning to bring more in. That's the North Node going through the 8th. And whether that's inheritances, joint finances, it could be child support, it could be spousal support. It could also be just, debt, loans, or investments or savings. Now is the time to be really thinking about where you stand with your own finances before you get to next month when you have an eclipse that's going to oppose Saturn, because there's definitely going to be this real reflection on the impact of what other people aren't contributing, what they're not giving you, what they're not paying for, what they can't afford, what they need help with. And it may make finances a little bit more tricky next month. Now, this new moon also in conjunction quincunxes Saturn and Neptune in the 9th, as well as Pluto in the 7th. So it's going to talk a lot about you figuring out your financial situation before you're planning any trips, or maybe before you're, planning to graduate or get a higher degree, and also working that out or talking about it with another person, with a partner. So relationships and money seem to be a huge focus for a lot of you guys, and I think that that's how this is going to manifest, at least in your finances this month, before you tackle the joint finances next month. So let's see what card you guys get. You get the 3 of Cups, which is a positive card. This is about celebration. And in many ways, like the second house can also be about family wealth and like family money. So I could see like a new moon here that's like, oh, there's some positive stuff that's kind of shifting. We'll see it unfold, down the road where, maybe we are bringing in funds and it's lightening the load, but it's something that's coming from, a generous grandparent or an inheritance, or that there is going to be some kind of like estate matter that pops up. But 3 of Cups is also working together. This is also about celebrating something. So some of you guys might feel like you're celebrating reaching some financial milestones or anything that's going to make you feel more secure. This is also about friendship, community, gatherings, celebrations, group events, and social events. So I do anticipate that with the square to Uranus in your 10th and your 11th house of friendships and goals, that there can be some spontaneous social events and things that are happening, which is kind of prompting you to have to kind of think on your feet when it comes to adjusting your budget and like what you're spending or what you're buying or what you're contributing to some of these things, and some pretty dramatic changes in your financial goals. But I think it's actually quite positive for Leo. Hope that's helpful, Leo. I'll catch you guys back here with the next moon. And we've got Virgo and Virgo rising. Well, obviously, you guys are the stars of the show. You get eclipses in your sign. We have 2 new moons that's going to be in your sign. The South Node's in your sign. What can I say other than if you have anything 0 to 3 degrees of Virgo, Sun, Moon, or Rising, this is going to be very prominent for you. If you have anything at 28 or 29 degrees, your guys' new moon is going to be next month. But you get a double dose of focusing on yourself. And I think that I would actually I would take my advice to really focus on yourself with the first one. In particular, because I think that this is far enough away from the South Node that it's not registering as an eclipse yet. So it's not bringing up that, oh, this dramatic thing is going to happen. There is going to be this big shift. The South Node will be involved with it next month, and it's going to represent letting go. Also, when you have a new moon, which you generally get once a year in your sign, this gives you the opportunity to really focus on yourself. So it just so happens that you're having this new moon simultaneously while you're having a nodal transit, and it's kind of like a paradox because one wants you to let go of selfish, over analyzing perfectionist tendencies, and then the other one's like, no, do more. So the first things first is the first new moon that you're going to have in August is all about you, okay? And it kind of has to be that way. Recently, Mercury, your ruler, has been retrograde, and it's still in shadow. It's in the 12th house, so it can mean that some of you guys are doing some introspective work. Maybe you're doing some meditation. Maybe you're doing some, healing practices. Maybe you're traveling. Maybe you're going to therapy. But there is this sense of you've been working through something behind the scenes, and you've been needing more time to kind of readdress what direction you're actually going to be going in and how you communicate and what you want. And a lot of this stuff you've been kind of working on subconsciously. But you will find in the next month or so, as we come into the other eclipse, when Mercury and Venus is in your sign, and it's coming into oppositions with your 7th house, that you're going to be a lot more vocal with other people about, okay, I've been readjusting things with me all month in August into September. You get to the end of September, you have the next eclipse. Which will oppose Saturn, and it's going to bring up whether or not the changes you've made in this next month, if it's lining up and resonating with who you're partnering with, whether that's your therapist, your business partner, your astrologer, your spouse. It's going to be very, very, very significant, I think, for my Virgo and my Pisces risings, particularly the late degrees, because it can be spelling out, in order for me to really come together with this other person, I need to know exactly who I am, what I want, what new kind of goals I'm focusing on, and also next month, what I'm willing to give up in order to mesh and be closer and strongly tied to a partner. Now, this is wild because not only is the ruler still in shadow, so there's a lot of things that are still getting kind of worked out behind the scenes, but it's also going to square Uranus in your 10th house. So this is kind of saying there's about to be a status change, and it can mean for a lot of Virgo risings that you're changing jobs and you went from working in one industry to another industry. But it can also mean that part of your identity is tied up in this change that's going to be happening out in the world. So if it's not changing jobs, or maybe becoming self-employed, or maybe having like a little bit of like a free period when it comes to your work and trying to figure out what you're meant to be doing, that change that's going on in your professional life is really impacting the way that you kind of identify out in the world. Like, who am I if I'm not employed, right? That very much an earth sign thing. Also, this could mean there's some status change, right? So, maybe there's been changes going on with staff, and now you're suddenly being put in a role of a manager when you weren't before. Maybe it means that, you're actually kind of breaking away from work, and a lot of that's because you're focusing on your health or your habits, or there's some dramatic scheduling changes that are kind of happening, with your employees or with your schedule, and it's bringing up some stress in like how you're showing up and kind of connecting with people at work. Relational things are going to be a huge theme as well, particularly next month, but I would say with like Sun square Uranus, it can indicate that there is an incoming change to your relationship status. So some of you guys might actually go from being single to being in a relationship to being single. You'll see more of that with the solar eclipse in Virgo next month. Okay, so really for you guys, I would say focus on personal reinvention, focus on yourself, your identity, your appearance, your goals, because all of that feels like it's the right time now. And even if you're making personal changes and it changes your relationships or your career, so be it. Maybe focus on updating your look, and definitely be affirming your sense of self-worth, because I think that's very important. And then next month, you'll be deciding whether or not this whole re-evaluation and kind of realignment you've done, is it actually working well with other people or not? And the card that you guys get is the Death card. South node eclipses in particular, you're going to find that this is like, okay, well, that's kind of getting cleared out. That's changing. And, I do think that the positive is that with the North Node being in your 7th house and like an upcoming Pisces eclipse in your 7th house next month too, there's a lot of togetherness. There's a support team, whether it's a partner, if it's a professional collaborator, if it's a spouse, if it's going to be a therapist. But there's still a lot of like clearing out the old you, right? And so maybe some of these changes that are coming through your career is making you like radically redefine who you are. But the Death card is also about transformations, about endings, change, transition, letting go, and release, which I feel like you kind of have to do with the squares to Uranus. That's part of it. That's like, also the South node being here. It's like whatever you can change, just let go. Be willing to kind of adapt to whatever new things are coming in. We don't want to resist when we see the Death card coming up. And that can be an indication that that's kind of like a cycle that you're going to be in between now and about November of this year. Okay? Let me know, Virgo, how this manifests for you. And to the late degree Virgos, come back for your eclipse next month. All right, we've got Libra and Libra rising. What's up, Libra? You're going to be doing the first of what will be 2 new moons taking place in Virgo in your natal 12th house. Now, Libra, the 12th house is obviously the area of your chart, whether you're a Libra rising or you're a Libra sun. When planets go through Virgo, things are circling out, okay? They're preparing before you come into what's going to be your season, whether the sun's going through your ascendant sign or your moon sign, or it's coming up on your birthday. There is this sense of reevaluating what's been happening over the last year as you prepare for your new solar year. So the 12th house represents your sleeping habits, your bedroom, your subconscious, anything in regards to spirituality. And in particular, the 12th house deals with closure. So it can be about closure that you're getting in regards to Virgo matters, mental stress, health-related issues, work-related issues. In particular, recently, Mercury, which rules this house, has been retrograde in the 11th, which means there's been a lot of feeling like maybe there is some distance or isolation or separation or difference of opinion when it comes to your relationship with other people. So your friends, your allies, even networks, there could be some communication issues. And maybe there's been some friendship breakups. Maybe there's been some reevaluations of who you want to reconnect with. Maybe there's been some people who are showing you their true colors. But regardless of what it's been, now the retrograde is over and like Mercury is getting ready to leave shadow. So I do think for a lot of you guys, there's this sense of being like, okay, well, that's over. It's time to kind of like let this go and just be done. But easier said than done when you have it in your 12th house where it can kind of still linger. And also you're going to see that this new moon is going to square Uranus in your 9th house in Gemini. There is a sense of tension, particularly with higher education or travel. So that can be coming up for some of you guys over the next 6 months. It is also in conjunct or quincunx Pluto in your 5th house of romance and creativity, Saturn and Neptune in your 7th house of relationships. So, I look at this and go, all of the things that you're not discussing, you're not dealing with, whether it's fears, phobias, lack of sleep, mental health issues, it can play particularly a heavy role in how you create in your overall happiness or joy or your love life or relationship with kids, as well as like committed relationships and partnerships. And so really what it's trying to get you to do is really embrace in the 12th house being like, okay, I can do, better when it comes to my health habits and my routines, but also it's like my spiritual health. It's also like my mental health, and anything regarding to your sleep schedule. So watch for hidden insights that surface for healing. It can come up when you're traveling. It can also come up, through illness. Obviously that can happen here. And this is also really about maybe practicing like a form of meditation, some breath work, maybe some dream journaling, and releasing any fears that you have that may potentially come up in meditation. Now, this is important also because as we get into the next month, you'll come into next month where you're going to have a second new moon in Virgo, which will be at 29 degrees, which is going to be a degree right before your sign, right? So especially if you're an early degree Libra rising, I would say 0 to 3 degrees, pay attention because your intuition might be very strong this month. Your dreams might be very strong this month. And the 12th house does deal with like dreams and ancestors. And next month, you're going to have the eclipse conjunct your ascendant with Mercury there, which can mean that you're making a big announcement. And it's going to be about traveling. It's going to be about, maybe some kind of change in regards to publishing, legal matters, something creative. And it looks like you need to marinate on it a little bit, Libra, this month before you kind of figure out what that is that you're going to be releasing. Card that I get for you is the Hierophant. So this can be dealing specifically with a Taurus, a sun, moon, or rising if you've got a Taurus in your life. This can also deal with tradition, social groups, anything in regards to conformity, education, knowledge, and beliefs. Perhaps maybe if you're feeling a little lost right now, the square to Uranus can materialize as there being a new therapist. Maybe there is a new author or podcaster or motivational speaker or teacher or mentor of some kind that comes in that shifts your philosophy, especially when it comes to like spiritual or like religious matters or kind of health matters. This is also about you getting more serious and like taking control when it comes to your health and your habits and like really being aware of self-undoing tendencies. So things that you're kind of doing where you're getting in your own way, that's maybe creating some issues, not only for your frame of mind, but also potentially for relationships and your overall sense of happiness. So there's going to be a lot of, I think, subconscious awareness that's going to come through, and you're going to be better about kind of tackling it this month. Good luck, Libra. We've got Scorpio and Scorpio rising. What's up, Scorpio? You're going to be doing a new moon in Virgo, the first of two, which will be taking place in your natal 11th house. Which is all about your friends. This is about your groups and your aspirations, your goals. The first new moon that's going to be taking place is an interesting one, primarily because of some of the aspects that it's going to be making to some of the outer planets like Uranus, Neptune, and Saturn. But new moons taking place in the 11th house really put a focus on, okay, what are my goals? What intentions am I setting? How am I connecting with others? Am I planning events? Am I planning parties? And obviously the South Node is going through there. So Sun, Scorpio, and Scorpio risings are going to find that, yes, this very much deals with your friends, your group, your aspirations, that there may be new network surprises that come in that really align with your goals, or maybe there is, a new community that you're meeting with. Maybe there is a new kind of like group that you're starting. And this could be online. This could be, locally. And this is ruled by Mercury, which has recently been retrograde in your natal 10th house. So a lot of my Scorpio and Scorpio risings have been working through the last couple of weeks changes when it comes to how you communicate with your bosses, where you're working, how you're working, maybe trying to kind of reorganize something, particularly under the realm of, I think, how you can kind of appeal to a bigger audience, or, how you can work better with others, and also changes with finances. So this new moon is great for, I want to plan a party. I want to connect with people. I'd love to launch a group. I want to focus on my goals. Obviously, if you're an early degree Scorpio rising, it's friendly. But if you happen to be a late degree Scorpio rising, then it is squaring you. So you're going to be feeling the effects of that. And this new moon squares Uranus in your 8th house. So it does bring up some unexpected changes or transformation of joint assets as a result of some kind of community effort or project. And like I said, it in conjuncts or quincunx Pluto, which is one of your rulers, as well as Saturn and Neptune. And this means that you might be looking at your goals when it comes to transformation with your home and family, as well as your schedule and your health and your habits. Maybe to kind of have better support with changes that's going on emotionally or in your private life or with your health and work. You're really looking to groups and friends and other people who can really kind of help you make that possible. And, Pluto is very sensitive, obviously, as it's one of your rulers. But one of your other rulers is Mars. And it looks like that Mercury will be sextiling Mars in the 12th. which means some of the decisions that you're making professionally is helping you kind of put to rest things that have been bothering you, or maybe help you kind of take a step back and like rest and recuperate or heal. And that you're really having to kind of listen to your gut to when it comes to making relationship changes or making kind of health or habit changes. So I'd love to see some of you guys joining a health or a wellness or a fitness group, or just focusing on like team building exercises at work. All right, so for Scorpio and Scorpio rising, you guys get the Page of Wands. And the Page of Wands can be a fire sign, so it can be an Aries or a Leo or a Sag. It can also represent a younger person. This means that you're really focusing on adventure, excitement, fresh ideas, focusing on cheerfulness, energy, fearlessness, and being more extroverted. So I think that's going to be really fun for you. Usually when pages come up, it's about doing something new that you haven't done before. So it can be about, like I said, joining a new group or starting a new group, or maybe anything that involves health or fitness, or working in collaboration with others can be really beneficial. And this particular card, when this comes up, I always think of this as like the pages want to explore. They're like, oh, I've never done this before. Let me check this out. So it might mean that you're exploring different departments or different options when it comes to your career or your career path or your field. And maybe you're needing to connect and collaborate with other people who can give you inspiration or insight. And it looks like there's going to be a lot of opportunities for you to kind of learn something new when it comes to either your goals or your career. Okay? Good luck, Scorpio. All right, we've got Sag and Sag rising. You guys are going to be experiencing the first of what will be 2 new moons in Virgo. In August, you're going to have one at 0 degrees in your 10th house of career. So if you happen to be 0 to about 3 degrees of Sagittarius, Sun, Moon, or Rising, pay attention because you're going to be feeling the effects of this particular new moon. Well, 2 new moons means you get double dose of focusing on your career. So the 10th house is your career, your reputation, your ambitions. If you're retired and if you don't work, it's just more, how can I be out there? How can I be of service? How can I help people? And usually with a new moon here, it can be really positive for looking for new jobs, launching new ventures. Maybe it can mean that you're taking on, something new at work, you're starting a new work project. But this one's a little bit of like a wild card because it does indicate that these new things can come in. Like, this is not an eclipse. It's pretty far away from the south node. But it's challenging because it's coming into a square with Uranus in your 7th house as a Sag rising, if you're a Sag rising. So I'm seeing this more like the new moon's going to bring in professional pivots, and it might be towards service-oriented goals. But it may also bring tension or friction with a relationship. So through a committed relationship, through a business venture, with clients, maybe even with, siblings, as Uranus is connected to siblings, that as you're going through some changes with your career, communication and tension with some friendships or relationships can be like very, very obvious. I would say with this new moon, you want to kind of look for the positive. And the positive is that you are going to be seeing a second new moon that's going to be popping up next month, which will be at 29 degrees of Virgo. So if you're 28, 29 degrees of Sag, you're going to feel that one more. And when that happens, it's going to oppose Saturn that's moving back into your 4th house, where you're going to go, well, now I really have to make a definite change with work or career to focus or prioritize what's going on with my home or my living situation or my family, which has been, I know, a back and forth kind of thing for a lot of you guys with these eclipses. However, I think that now is a good time to update your resume. I would be really focusing on the most recent Mercury retrograde, which is ruling all of this, where some of you guys have been saying, actually, I'm taking a course, I'm going back to school, I'm connecting with a counselor, I'm getting back into teaching, I want to be traveling, and that is influencing or impacting some of the changes which may be happening in regards to your professional career moving forward. Now, outside of the square to Uranus, which makes up some tension in relationships, the sun and the new moon forge a focal point between Pluto and Aquarius and Saturn, Neptune and Aries, where in order for you to have this brand new beginning with your professional life, it's pushing you to, number one, communicate and change and transform the way that you communicate. So the 3rd house could mean you're creating a new website, you're getting on social media, you're starting, a blog, maybe you're starting a YouTube channel, maybe you're, adapting and bringing in new media, right? And then it also in conjunction and quincunxes Saturn and Neptune in your 5th, where it's totally transforming the way that you create. And obviously, Saturn and Neptune retrograde in the 5th house brings maybe creative blockages, and it can also bring a feeling of not knowing how to express yourself or what makes you happy. And instead of feeling like stuck and not sure how to move forward, I think the focal point of this new moon is just saying you just have to commit to the idea that you're going to be doing something different. We don't know what it looks like yet or how you're going to get there. We'll kind of think about that more next month when you get with the eclipse. But now is a really good time to take some of these thoughts or philosophies or beliefs or these new kind of shifts in how you're learning or what you believe in and start kind of plugging this into your career intentions. Some of you guys might also be like traveling for work. So I would just say maybe as a tip, update something about your resume, update something revolving around your professional kind of appearance, whether it's your LinkedIn, maybe it's going to be headshot photos, maybe you're applying for jobs, whatever it is you want to do, and visualize the success. And what will happen is next month when you have the next eclipse, there's going to be some bigger changes with your career, which is likely going to be impacting where you're living or your home or your family dynamic. So stay tuned for that, Sag. The card that I got for you is the Six of Wands, which honestly is such a great card considering what Sag and Sag risings are really kind of going through right now. I think a lot of you guys are like, wow, there's dramatic change in my career and also my relationships. What is going on? And I would say, well, it looks like you're going to be, victorious. No, especially if you have anything around like that early degree, maybe I think it's like 8 to 12-ish degrees of Virgo midheaven. This will be an eclipse next spring in your midheaven, which is going to be about a big change in your career as well. So you might be looking at, working with this more than about 6 to 12 months. The Six of Wands is about victory. It's about being well received. This is also about success, triumph, rewards, recognition. And obviously a new moon, you can be manifesting those things. I think a lot of it's going to come with some changes maybe that you're having with how you connect and communicate with people, business partners, clients, what have you. But this is the highest point in your chart. So when you have 2 new moons here, it's time to really focus on your public reputation and how you can actually get about, kind of bringing this forward and organizing and really kind of nurturing and taking care of your professional outlook. Hope that's helpful for you, Sag. And we've got Capricorn and Capricorn rising. You guys are going to experience the new moon in Virgo, the first one at 0 degrees in your 9th house. And this is in a fellow sister earth sign. So if you have anything 0 to 3 degrees of Capricorn, sun, moon, or rising, this new moon on the 23rd of August is going to be trining you, which is positive and it's really helpful in a lot of ways. The 9th house deals with traveling. So whether it's like booking flights, planning to go places, it can also be about teaching, education, publishing, legal matters, as well as philosophy and expansion in general. So this is the house that we like to kind of see action in because it can mean that you're expanding and you're kind of like becoming more open to how you see the world. Obviously, the South Node is here, so it can mean that you're considering traveling, returning, reconnecting to places that you have visited before, reconnecting to people that you have worked with before. It can also mean that you're reevaluating something about your philosophy when it comes to work or health. Now, I'm predicting for you guys that this is really about mind expanding adventures or studies. Obviously, you're going to see a number of aspects, which is really quite personal for you. I would say one is the sun is going to, with the new moon, in conjunct or quincunx Saturn, which is retrograde in your 4th house. And that could have you saying, well, I'm reevaluating or reassessing a home matter, a family matter, where I want to live, maybe a family estate issue. There could also be themes revolving around dramatic changes with your home and your living situation. And this new moon in conjunct that is trying to get you like out of the house, or it's trying to get you to maybe travel a little bit, or if you do need to be seeking an advisor, or if you do need a teacher, maybe you even need a lawyer, it could be bringing some of these people in to kind of help you deal with some of these 4th house matters. And this new moon also in conjunct Pluto in your financial house or your money house. So it's forming this yod between Saturn in your 4th, Pluto in your 2nd, where there could actually be some kind of breakthrough that could happen in regards to education or travel that may put a little pressure on your finances, definitely helps you get out of the house and gives you a little bit of like a turning point with feeling like landlocked with Saturn and Neptune in your 4th. This new moon is also going to be squaring Uranus in your 6th. So it's basically saying there's going to be some changes to your schedule, where you're working or how you're working, which may be prompted by either teaching or traveling or education. And I feel like this is about maybe, yeah, seeking adventure, but there could be like trips that can kind of go on that can be unexpected or kind of clash with your schedule, or maybe it's like clashing with your work or like some kind of financial situation. And this is really a time where, yeah, you can plan a trip. Some of you guys might even be like traveling while we have the new moon in the ninth house, and it was something unexpected that you didn't see coming. Or it might mean that you're really focusing on kind of affirming your growth when it comes to your health, your productivity, or your education or career. That Sun square Uranus definitely throws things off a little bit. So, like, traveling could bring up some unexpected scheduling changes and also expense related matters. And you see that with the square to Uranus in your sixth, which rules money, and also in conjunct Pluto, which is in your money house. So there's a lot of like working money, traveling things that are coming up for you guys, which can be exciting, but also I feel like there is a sense of you guys going like, okay, I don't have the time or the wherewithal or the funds to be out here traveling 24/7. I'm trying to figure out, what do I need to do? Do I need to move? Do I need to be staying somewhere for a shorter period of time? Does it mean that I need to be, more focused on what's going to be kind of happening with like my local community rather than kind of being out and about? So you'll see that continue to kind of be a theme here for the next couple of months. But maybe for some of you guys, it's going to like represent that there's something that's changing now revolving around your philosophy about work and not feeling like you have to be limited based off of where you live and that you can really live or work anywhere. I think that might be some of the themes that are kind of coming up. Anyway, hopefully that's helpful for you, Capricorn and Capricorn rising. The card that I got for you guys is the Page of Coins, which is great if you're a Capricorn, if you're an Earth sign, but this can also be about a Taurus, another Capricorn, or a Virgo. Obviously, a new moon in Virgo, ninth house, studying, right? Certifications, training. Like if you guys are investing in learning more about something, or if you've been trying to find the money or the funds to take a class, take a workshop, get certified. Obviously, Mercury rules this lunation and it's been retrograde in your eighth. Or maybe you guys have had to be traveling or you've had to be going back with some legal matters regarding money owed. Now, likely you're going to start to actually see a turning point. But pages represent doing something you haven't done before. So whether that's education or travel related, it means you're investing a little bit more in some of your beliefs. And some of that might mean that you guys are changing the way that you look at food, habits, health, travel, as well as education. Good luck. We've got Aquarius and Aquarius rising. You guys are going to experience the first of what will be 2 new moons in Virgo at 0 degrees in your natal 8th house. This is going to be interesting for you guys because it's making quite a bit of aspects, in particular for Aquarians. So you wouldn't know that thinking that it's a Virgo new moon, but I think a lot of Aquarius people are going to be like, what is going on? And the new moon is going to be happening in your 8th house. So the 8th house deals with shared finances. So things like child support, spousal support, taxes, inheritance, anything revolving around debt or loans. So having a new moon here is about finances. It's also about transformation. It can be about intimacy and vulnerability. And you're going to get a double dose of of new moons here. So this one will be at 0 degrees. Next month is going to be at 29 degrees, which at least then is going to be kind of like trining your ascendant as well as Pluto if you're an Aquarius rising. But this isn't a sign that inconjuncts or quincunxes you. In particular, if you're an early degree Aquarius rising, you're going to feel that. And it is making an inconjunct to Pluto on your ascendant. So it's kind of like you going like, I feel like change is coming. It's on the way. It's going to happen. And you might feel like a little uncomfortable and that it's out of your control, or you're dealing with other people's money or other people's issues, or there are kind of karmic entanglements. And then the new moon's also going to inconjunct or quincunx Saturn in Aries in your 3rd, which is your traditional ruler, which does bring up the need to talk about delicate, sensitive things, and maybe be feeling like you're reevaluating how to talk about what scares you, what you're afraid of, what you need more of, and be addressing that with people. And then it's also going to square Uranus, which is your modern day ruler. So it's like, my goodness, this is making a lot of aspects for Aquariuses where there could be some unexpected, unconventional new ways of creating, having playtime, changes to your love life or changes with your children. And it can be also very like financial because it is making that square from the 5th to the 8th house where we take chances, we take risks, we maybe invest, and then we see whether or not it pays off. Certainly with the North Node going through Pisces in your 2nd house, I think something you're going to see next month with the Pisces eclipse is actually pretty positive when it comes to money. And I think a lot of Aquarius risings are going to see that it's going to bring maybe a turn of positive events for your finances, and it's bringing money in that's owed to you, especially with Jupiter, being the ruler in your sixth. It's going to be really good for work. But the second one that you're going to see next month is going to oppose Saturn, which will be back in your sign, which means there's going to be a need for you to go, well, I'm not going to be the one who's going to pay for it, or I'm not going to let my self-esteem take a swipe, or I'm not going to, feel like I need to make the sacrifices, for other people. Then the energy is going to be on other people. So this is giving you an opportunity with this new moon to start addressing some of those joint financial investment, kind of creative or kind of more personal matters this month before you get into the next one, which is going to be not as friendly with your chart. At least with the in conjunct of the Queen Conks, you can become aware that's like, hey, this needs to change. But with the square, the change comes out of left field and it's pushing you. So some kind of creative desires is pushing you to make some big changes with your finances. Next month, when it makes the opposition to Saturn in your chart, it's not going to be as friendly. Then you have to confront something. So I think there's going to be a lot of finding out about financial partnerships in this next month, and maybe tackling stuff that deals with joint debt. I think that could be something else. And I would set boundaries in partnerships. Personally, I think that this is a good thing to do. And it's about not kind of glossing over things and not having conversations to avoid some of the bigger challenges next month. Now, the card that I got for you guys is the Hanged Man. Okay, so it can be really talking to the Pisces eclipse, by the way. But the Hanged Man is also talking about being like, I'm going to wait and see. Like, I'm going to kind of feel this out. I'm not going to take any action quite yet. And I feel like that's very true with like the quincunx of Saturn and Neptune and also Pluto. There's a sense of you going like, I'm going to wait and see, but not staying too long there. So this is a card that's about sacrifice, waiting, uncertainty, lack of direction, perspective, and also feeling like there needs to be some contemplation, which makes sense. I think you're going to be doing that with the aspects to Saturn and Pluto, and the square to Uranus is just saying it might surprise you what kind of comes about from this month of contemplation before you get into next month. Maybe you're really thinking things over before you're investing or before you're merging or partnering. Certainly Mercury's retrograde recently in your opposite sign has been a lot about the kind of karmic entanglement, the emotional, psychological, spiritual, and financial involvement that you have with other people, and the back and forth that you've been having with conversations with them. So probably next month you're going to see is going to be more time to take some kind of action, whether or not you're going to continue to work well with another person, or if you're going to draw a line in the sand. Good luck. And finally, we have Pisces and Pisces rising. You guys are going to be experiencing the first of what will be 2 new moons in the sign of Virgo, taking place at 0 degrees of Virgo. So if you have anything 0 to 3 degrees of Pisces, this is going to be a direct opposition. So it's dealing with others, right? 7th house. Yeah, interesting for you guys. I mean, obviously, a new moon in the 7th house is going to represent opportunity to focus on new relationships and like seeding new relationships. And whether that's, hey, I want a new therapist, or I want a new business partner, or I want to meet somebody, or I want to kind of like a restart in my existing relationship. A new moon here is going to be all about, relationships and partnerships, and it can definitely produce new connections. I think that that's very possible, especially in a professional manner, right, Virgo? But also new people you can work with, new people that can be clients, new people that you could potentially be bringing in when it comes to your health and your wellness, as well as Mercury has been retrograde in your 6th house, and it's tied to your 7th, where you could be kind of going back and forth, revolving around, well, do I still want to work with these people? Do I want to look for a new job? Am I working through some communication kind of hiccups and issues with an existing relationship? All of these things could have been kind of going on. Obviously, you are ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter is trining the North Node at the time of this lunation. It's also coming into a sextile with the South Node. So there is like this overly kind of prioritizing your own joy, your own happiness, your own creativity to better focus on setting intentions when it comes to relationships. Now, this new moon is a great time where if you want to put something new out into the world, a new service, a new product, you want to be launching something, you can. Because the 7th house is your marketplace. But something to think about is that this new moon makes an inconjunct to Pluto in your 12th, which is more kind of hidden and subconscious, and also an inconjunct to Saturn and Neptune, your modern day ruler, in Aries in your money house. So there's a lot of kind of contemplating behind the scenes what changes you need to be making in terms of your finances, your budgeting, your resources, and whether or not it makes sense to kind of work with or partner with other people. And that could be as simple as I need an accountant, I need somebody who can kind of manage my business. I need a therapist, I need an astrologer, somebody who can kind of help me work on my financial or my self-esteem matters and kind of get out of my own way. So there can be relationships that can come in from this new moon that can kind of really help you in these departments, be building up better when it comes to your self-esteem as well as your money. However, the wild card is that the new moon squares Uranus in your natal fourth, which means that over the next 6 months, you're going to see a theme where there's new ventures and new things happening or changes happening in relationships that's prompting or bringing about sudden dramatic changes in your home or your living situation. Uranus in your fourth. So it could mean you meet somebody and then over 6 months, it prompts you to want to move, right? It can also mean that you're actually in the season of clearing out relationships. So there's a sense of letting somebody go or breaking something off. And that's prompting, okay, I'm moving or they are moving or there's a lot of disruptions in the home. Now, I do think that for a lot of you guys, the recent Mercury retrograde has been showing you where there has been some breakdown in communication with close one-on-one relationships, whether it's work relationships or romantic relationships. And I would say the positive is that being very clear about your boundaries and being really clear about knowing your worth and being able to let go of any, subconscious fears and relationships could actually really strengthen relationships here, even in spite of the South Node eclipse that's coming next month in your seventh. The other thing I would say is that the next new moon that you're going to have, the solar eclipse, is going to oppose Saturn, which will be back in your sign, and Neptune that's very close by, which means that that's then going to be an extra, okay, well, I've been, focusing on partnering with people. I've been trying to be diplomatic. I've been trying to kind of have better balanced relationships and relationships to others. And now you're going to get to the end of September. And when that eclipse comes through, you're going to go, am I doing too much for them? Is it too much about them, not enough about me? Have I devoted too much time to this relationship? And that might be something that plays out still for another 6 months. But the balancing act is going to be a little difficult. And I feel like for some of you guys, whether it's changes with home or relatives or with romantic partners, this is what's kind of like throwing a little bit of like a monkey wrench into like relational issues. And you're still going to want to watch for next month with that other solar eclipse, new moon in Virgo, that's going to show you whether or not somebody is really pushing to align with you. And maybe you're taking a step back and you're letting them kind of prove it to you and like show you that they're taking you seriously, because I think with Saturn and Neptune going back into your sign, I think with the North Node in your sign, eclipses in your sign, it's definitely a lot about you. And I think strong relationships can kind of weather some of these, challenges, but your partnerships could be going through something. So your relationship could be fine, but it could mean that you've got a spouse or you've got a client or a business partner that's going through health issues or going through work issues, or they're going through some kind of personal crisis, right? And you're more in tune with that. So I think you might see that as well. And certainly communication on these kind of topics have been a little bit difficult recently with Mercury retrograde, right? So let's see what card Pisces gets. You get the King of Swords, which could be about obviously a Gemini. It could be about a Libra or an Aquarius. It can also just be about speaking your truth, being a lot more communicative about where you stand and what you want and what you need. So this is all about reason, authority, discipline, integrity, morality, seriousness, high standards, and also strictness. So maybe it means that you're kind of holding yourself to a new standard within relationships. And you're like, you know what? I'm going to do the best that I can. I'm going to really apply myself. I'm going to try to work with somebody, be diplomatic and fair and see how it goes. And it can mean that in a relationship sense, that you're really focusing more on anything in regards to maybe communication in relationships and like clarity and like feeling like you're heard, and that there's going to be a decent amount of back and forth where you guys can actually work through this stuff. And the seventh house doesn't have to be romantic partners. It could be a therapist, or it could be a counselor, or a coach, or somebody who's giving you some kind of feedback. In particular, I think on like health and habits. So I would look into some of those types of relationships over the next month, because it can be really beneficial in navigating some of the things that are going to come in September. So with that being said, I hope that is helpful for you guys in kind of navigating this up and coming new moon in the sign of Virgo. Obviously, it's going to be happening around the 22nd or the 23rd of August, 2025, depending on where you live, at 0 degrees. And as this Virgo new moon wraps up, I would just say, remember that, perfection is not the goal with the South Node in Virgo. And even with the new moon at 0 degrees, progress is. We're focusing on taking one step forward this month under this new moon. We're learning how to do things we haven't learned how to do in the past. So we want to kind of embrace the magic of, small intentional steps and really trusting the universe to help harvest our efforts as we get into later in 2025. So thank you guys for tuning in, watching this video. Make sure you hit like if you like this video and if it resonated with you. Comment your intentions below or let me know what you're feeling with this 0 and 29 degree kind of madness. I would love to hear your guys' feedback and how this plays out for you as we're heading into fall eclipse season. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And until next time, I hope you guys enjoy this up and coming Virgo new moon. I'll be here to talk to you all about the next one. Take care.